And now,
ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelts.
Welcome to PreneurCast.
You know, business cards being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Tom Kosher.
How well did that go down?
We can talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if we want to.
Visit us online at PreneurMarketing.com.
Hello.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of PreneurCast with me, Dom Goucher.
And I guess that leaves me as Pete Williams.
I guess you're right.
So how's the week been?
Good, busy, very, very, very busy, but good.
Beautiful. Busy with the challenge. Is that the focus of your time at the moment?
It has been the absolute focus of my time. Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah. For those who don't know, each year I do a little bit of work for Ed Dale and the team on the challenge. I produce the transcripts for all of the lessons.
Let's just back this train up a bit. Back it up just a little bit.
Yeah, I was just thinking as I was speaking, do you know what? I don't know anybody knows what we're talking about.
I'm sure there's definitely some people who have come across from other places, you know, the blog and Twitter and that sort of stuff, who know what the challenge is, what used to be referred to as the 30-day challenge. So it's probably worth, before we go down that rabbit hole, giving some context. For those previous listeners, they would know how important context is. So let's give them some context and explain what the challenge actually is.
And as a contributor to the challenge in previous years, can I hand that over to you?
Sure. Yeah, well, basically, Ed Dale, who, again, has been on this podcast, mentioned numerous times, but also did the John Mayer Love-In episode, started this little thing called the challenge. I'm guessing... memory. 6 years ago? 5 years or 6? Anyway, a few years back. And started it called the 30-Day Challenge. And basically, it was a program to show people how to make their first dollar on the internet. And basically, for 30 days, gave away a metric shit ton, it's a technical term, of free content about lessons going from start to finish of how to make your first dollar online. It's not one of those sort of, you know, how to go and make $1 million and retire in 3 months kind of thing. It's simply just make your first dollar online. Set the right foundation and learn the right lessons. And started it, and it took off, and it's now into its 5th or 6th year, or whatever sort of math equation it works out to be. And I think last year we had about 160,000 people go through it, or in the last 12 months or something. Some period of time has been over 160,000 people go through this thing. It's absolutely insane. It's growing astronomically. And it's on again starting as of the 1st of September, which is today in Australia, tomorrow in the US. So it's sort of happening around about now at time of recording. And yeah, it's obviously grown and changed in the way it's been delivered, and it's no longer a 30-day challenge anymore. It's actually stretched out over a longer period of time. But that means more content, higher quality content, and it's still probably, in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinion, to be honest, the best way to learn how to start marketing your business using the internet as the platform for that business. And primarily it's all about starting a business that you can run from home. And it's an amazing process that, you know, let's be honest, it's a lead generation tool for Ed and the team and all the stuff that gets done off the back of that. But it's the best lead generation process I've seen in any business anywhere in the world, because it gives away so much value up front. And I guess that's a good enough starting point. I'm sure you've got some stuff to add to sort of help out with the overview of what it is.
Yeah, the first thing, you really skipped over one of the most important parts of this. I absolutely agree with everything that you said. But let's break this down. If this was an advert...
Like rap? Do you like rap? Break it down like rappers?
Oh dear, no.
Oh, okay.
Please, no. If this was an advert, people would be a little bit skeptical, because they'd say, hey, make your first dollar online. And traditional advertising is, make $1,000 or $500 a day or whatever the usual trash is. But the premise is make $1 online. But where people would fall down on this would be the word free. Because let's emphasize this. This program is completely free. 100% free. Every element of it. Once you sign up to receive the notifications to tell you when the next lesson is out or whatever other information there is, there's absolutely no fees. You do not pay to join this course. They've even negotiated free trial memberships and copies of any software that they recommend that you use during the process. It's quite phenomenal.
Let me put one caveat around that just to make sure it's completely transparent. We do suggest that you purchase a domain name and a little bit of hosting. So let's say you don't buy a coffee for 4 days and you're good to go. So literally about $12 is all you really need in terms of the whole process.
Absolutely. If you want to carry the entire thing through and take action, as we always say, you've got to take action. If you want to take the action step of buying the domain for your website and putting it on some hosting, yes, that will cost you. But the recommendations that are made are the lowest, cheapest possible purchase cost for that.
Absolutely.
But in terms of all the other tools that are recommended, but the most important thing is it's free. And if you think about, most people think, free, it's going to be rubbish, it's going to be a bit haphazard, it's going to be a bit blah, 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 blah. No. And that is a truly amazing thing. As you said, there's a phenomenal amount of content. This thing used to be, when it was a 30-day challenge, it was 30 days worth of video-based training. That's a lot in itself. But also, and the intro to this came from the fact that Ed brought me into the team because every single piece of content also has a written PDF-generated transcript with screenshots, summaries, all the links, hyperlinks, references, everything broken out. So you've got the material in any format you want. It's the highest quality material for this kind of stuff, and it's actually, in my humble opinion, as not as a super elite internet marketer, but as an ordinary everyday guy with an ordinary everyday business, it's a process that actually works.
Yeah,
it's not some arbitrage. Like, get there now, do it now before somebody else gets... This has been tested and proved over the last 6 years with thousands and thousands of people. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think, there's about... I think it's worked out, there's like 59, I guess you'll call it, not modules, but training sessions. And each session, I think, has about 2 videos in it. So there's like 100 pieces of content in here. It's absolutely insane. Like, realistically, there's courses out there, it sounds a bit trite, but there's courses out there that are less quality, less produced, less content, selling for a couple of grand. This thing's completely free. Ed's done an amazing job. And it's actually the core training that I put all my new virtual team through. So any sort of person who comes on board and joins the Preneur group, so to speak, the first thing they do is they'll sit and go through the entire challenge training from where to go and taking notes. So it's definitely something that I continually use for all my team to give them a strong foundation in what is, in my opinion, core internet marketing principles. And it also, I'm going to use the term again, sets the context for them on what we do. Because everything that we do throughout PreneurMarketing.com and all the other stuff that springs off that is set in the foundations of what the challenge teaches. So it's a great way to give them the context of the projects and types of work they're going to be working on. Obviously, we go into this a lot more depth and really ratchet it up a lot. But the flow and the process and the Symphony of Four Parts, which I think we spoke about on one of the very early episodes of PreneurCast when we spoke about the book that's coming along and will be out at some point. Let's just leave it at that. We spoke about the Symphony of Four Parts, and that is, it's a foundation that I use in all our businesses, and it came from the challenge. So
yeah. Now I really want to actually. We did talk about it briefly, and I want to come back to that because that's really the core of what is taught in the challenge. But before we do that, let's just do some full disclosure here, because this really sounds like an Ed Dale and the challenge loving. We've had Ed on this show before. Well, you had Ed on the show.
There's a man crush going on somewhere in that sort of equation.
We've had Ed on the show before, and we don't hide the fact that you are pretty good friends with a lot of the guys that are involved in this. But one of the reasons you're involved in it is because of the way that they do this, that it's given away for free. Yeah, okay, let's not, you haven't hidden it, we've been up front. It's a lead generator. These guys have got other businesses and they're interested in getting people to take on that stuff. But, and I work for Ed. I provide the transcription services as part of the challenge. You contribute content to the challenge in the past. But the reason why I'm bigging this up is the same reason that you are, which is that this content stands alone. If I didn't know Ed, if I'd never met the guy, or any of the other really, really nice guys on the challenge team, actually, and some of them are frighteningly clever as well, if I'd never met them, I would still stand by this content, absolutely. That it teaches, and this is another important point, the core concepts of an internet-based business, and also of marketing a business on the internet from the ground up. These guys start with buying a domain name. They start before buying a domain name. They go all the way through, right the way up to monetizing a reasonable monetization method and how to move forward. They don't miss any steps out. So, as you say, for your team and any team out there, it's a fantastic foundation. If you have a normal everyday business and you're thinking of promoting that business online, or you want to start your own business and you're thinking of doing something with a business that runs online, this is a great way to get into it. It's not the be-all and end-all. It doesn't have the answer to everything, but it will give you that foundation, that grounding of knowledge. And to come back to the Symphony of Four Parts, what comes before all of this technical, high-level, deep and meaningful stuff that they teach you about the internet, about getting a website, getting it into Google, getting it promoted, and all the rest of that stuff, it is this concept that Ed put across years ago and has built upon, of the Symphony of Four Parts, this way of looking at a business, any business. And I think it even maps to offline businesses, but it certainly is more obvious a mapping to online businesses.
No, it absolutely applies to offline businesses. Unquestionably applies. There's some elements of it which are easier to manage and easier to measure, yeah.
Don't forget measuring. Measuring, no managing.
Through online businesses, because of the keyword research you can do and analytics data and stuff like that. But unquestionably, it applies to any business. And, it's something that we continually discuss in the Infinity office when we're sort of looking at doing new business units under the Telco brand or in the Preneur group sort of stuff as well, is this Symphony of Four Parts. It's, market research first. You got to work out, is there a market out there? Is there people who are, looking for your solution? Obviously, are there people that have the problem that your solution fixes? You got to make sure there's a market there. Then you got to make sure that there's traffic. Can this business generate traffic? Or how do I go and generate traffic for this business? Be it foot traffic or web traffic. And we spoke about traffic in the 7 Levers episode a couple of weeks back, about how important traffic is to a business. So you've got to make sure you're getting traffic to that business, whether it's retail store, phone inquiries, whatever it might be. Then you've got conversion. You've got to have a conversion engine in your business, and that's some sort of system that's replicable and scalable that actually converts that traffic into buyers. And then finally, it's about the product and about doing the product the best way you can, be it by producing the product or buying, from a 30-day challenge or challenge perspective, to run through that quickly, it's all about, getting a website, doing some research around the industry or niche that you want to go after, putting a website up there that isn't overly sexy, but is effective to get traffic. It's Google friendly, it's going to get you traffic. And then once you know that, hey, there is a market there and I can get traffic to my business, my website, then you go about working out how to convert that traffic into buyers. So you work out maybe some affiliate offers, you sell some other products from other producers in that particular niche and industry to see if you can convert and get that conversion engine working. And then you decide, well, how am I going to actually grow this business? Am I going to create my own product? Am I going to continue just to sell other people's product? What is the product going to be and how's it going to work? That's the last thing you think about. And to give you some ideas in some other scenarios, like, in various niches that we play in the telco space, what we'll do is before we ever go and necessarily crunch the best deal or work out if we're going to hold the stock ourselves and do deliveries and dispatches ourselves, we'll put up a website, make sure we can get traffic and make sure we can sell it, and then just drop ship that product to start with. And then we'll go about negotiating better prices. Or we'll even sell at cost to start with, just to make sure we can get an engine that actually is converting and generating leads for the business. And then we'll go about working out the best way to actually facilitate the product, or getting a larger product line, or finding different distributors and things like that. So, there's so many different ways, and it's really important to get that process down pat first.
Absolutely. But I think it's worth looking at this and realising that this and a lot of what is in the challenge goes against what most people would do, what the received wisdom is. Well, it's not even received wisdom, it's just what most people would do if they were trying to get involved in starting a business. You've just given an example there, and I'll come back to that, but we're looking at the Symphony of Four Parts. Looking for a market, look for traffic, look for conversion, and then, and only then, do you invest time and effort in developing and producing a product. Now, what do most people do? I had a conversation with a friend yesterday, and they said to me, I've got this great idea. I think this item A, or this widget, will sell really, really well. I'm going to go and look for what permits I need to set up, what licenses I need, what kind of equipment, who's selling it, how much it costs, see if I can get some investment. I said, whoa, whoa, Trigger. Have you seen anybody selling this product here? Well, no, but I'll be the leader. I'll be the first. Whoa, whoa, Trigger. And it's the standard conversation time and time and time again. And the way the challenge does this, because on the internet it's so easy, as you said, to do this, to set things, to do market research, and they show you all of this, how to do market research with, from your armchair. How awesome is that? How to work out whether a market is commercially viable. Because you might think, there's a massive market here, loads of people are interested in this topic, but it may not be commercially viable. They show you how to work that out. And then, just like you said, testing the traffic. Again, brilliant in a solution that you came up with, which is, let's not invest in like a couple of $100,000 worth of stock and then sit on it trying to sell it. Let's slap up a site, see if anybody tries to buy it, and if they do, well, we'll drop ship some to them. Yeah. We may not make the massive amount of profit from that particular thing, but what we do learn is whether or not it's a viable business before we invest a massive amount of capital.
Yeah, well, look, I think it's carsonline.com or car sales, or one of the big .coms back in 97, 98, 99 when the whole internet boom was coming along. Cars Direct, I think it was carsdirect.com. And what they did, they set up their website. They did this. They actually were one of the smarter .coms originally. I don't know whether they sort of stuck around and survived the bubble burst, but originally they set up carsdirect.com, and the story goes, or the word around the campfire is, that the way the website worked is when someone went on there to search for a particular car to buy online, there was actually someone at the other end of the computer literally typing back a price to the guy who was actually using the website, with this is how much the car is going to be. And if someone actually purchased the car online, he would then call up a local dealer and try and buy that car and get it delivered to the person. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So the original founders of that business, as far as the story goes, is that they had no inventory at all. They didn't even care about the product. They didn't even own the product. They just went and actually made sure they can get traffic and make conversions, make sales by someone actually literally having the red book in front of them. Oh, you want a Ford Fiesta 2-cylinder? Okay, yep, that would be $34,326. Oh, yep, you've purchased it. Great. Now they'll shop around and try and find someone who actually would sell it to them at that cost or as close to that cost as possible, so they wouldn't actually lose money on the sale. And that was able to prove their business model. So as you said, they could turn around and get some funding and go, hey, clearly people are willing to buy cars online. Let's go and actually invest in some serious money and build this out.
Brilliant. Amazing. And, well, this actually links back to something that I've only just recently become aware of, something actually mentioned by Ed on one of the various pieces of content in one of his paid memberships, but referred to him by one of his mentorees. It's a book called Go for No. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I have heard about it. I haven't read it yet. It will be part of noise reduction, hopefully in a couple of weeks' time.
Cool. I was going to ask you if you'd gone through, but the concept of Go for No is really backed up by what we're talking about with the challenge and the way that the challenge works. The idea of Go for No is that every successful sale, every successful purchase on a website, sale by telephone call, whatever it is, actually comes from a long line of people saying no. Whether it's people that don't even bother clicking on your listing in Google or your advert on the side of Google, whether it's people come to your website and then don't buy, or whether it's people that you actually ring up and they say no thank you. So there's a long list of no's before you get a yes, and most people focus on the yes. And they don't really think about the number of no's, or they do, and it depresses them. But one of the premises inside the challenge that I really love is the fact that because they make it so systematic and therefore so easy to do the market research, test the traffic, and look at the conversion. And you're not investing anything but a little bit of time, and it really is a little bit of time. It's quite scary how quickly you can loop through this process when you get used to it. Really, your capital outlay is the price of the domain name. You can get a very reasonable lump of hosting for a small fee that will host a number of websites, so you really only are investing in the domain name after the first turn. And they really advocate this Go for No strategy. You literally throw the site up just as you do in the telco. You throw the site up, do the minimum effort to promote it, get it in front of the eyeballs of the market if you find the market. Test for traffic, test for conversion. And if the numbers don't work, again, this is where most people would probably go wrong. If the numbers don't work, get rid of it.
Well, this is...
It costs... Yeah, go on.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it costs you, as you said, 3 coffees or whatever, and a bit of time to do this business market research. It didn't work. Fine, do another.
Well, speaking of that, this is one of the brilliant things that I think was Rob Somerville, a.k.a. Guru Bob's brainchild. Could have been Ed's. I don't know. Half of Ed's brilliance comes from Rob, let's be honest about it. And this is about the starting with the end in mind and having outcomes already planned. Because obviously, the original idea of all of this for a person is to start at the start, funnily enough, and end up with a website that's making them, their first dollar online, and hopefully go on to make them a nice bit of side income that can, even just pay for a holiday with your family. It doesn't have to replace your job. You can just do this just to make an extra $5,000 a year, which can cover a nice little family vacation that you couldn't have otherwise had. Or just, take that little bit of pain away from the mortgage payments every month, whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be about making $100,000 a year and replacing a job or anything like that. But the brilliance of the challenge is they've got a profitable outcome when you hit a no. And it's brilliant. There's a website called flipper.com, which is a website where you can sell other websites. So if you have built up a web property that's making $1 or not making $1, there's a marketplace out there for people who want to buy that, who want who think they can fast track part of it and jump on board and leverage that little bit of development that you have made. Because think about it, if you build a shack, someone's going to want to buy that shack in the real world, and this is basically the selling of the shack online. So even if your business doesn't make you $1, you can still turn around and sell that website from anywhere from $50 to $200 on Flipper.com. So you can actually make a profitable outcome by failing, which is bizarre. But it's because you've planned that, because you started at the start with that outcome in mind, going, okay, this is the outcome where I want to make $1. What happens if I don't make that $1? How can I actually profit from a failure? And they've thought that through, which I think is brilliant.
Yeah, and that's in the last few years, that's become a big part of the challenge. The fact that it's an absolute no-lose proposition. If you put the effort in, if you take the action, you do the initial market research and put up the site, get it listed in Google, and each step of the process, it really is absolutely important that everybody understands this. It's very easy, and I think a lot of people on this who listen to the podcast probably overlook the knowledge that they have. But if you don't have this knowledge, and I've come across this, if you don't have any one of these pieces of knowledge, each step of this process is priceless to a business wanting to be successful online, starting with getting your website indexed by Google. Because one of the biggest mistakes I've ever come across, and I have come across this, one of my clients was a multinational pharmaceutical company, and they had spent multiple tens of thousands of dollars having a website developed. And it was developed in Flash, so I try not to laugh at them, but let's overlook that minor detail. They called me in because they wanted to promote it online. They wanted it to rank for certain keywords and all these other things that they'd read about and heard about. And I had the very difficult task of explaining to them that sometimes if you build it, they won't come. Because this website, which was very, very expensive, looked lovely, really, very nice. Lots of very expensive video and lovely animations and stuff. It had never been seen by Google. And I don't mean they didn't rank very well and what I mean, it really had never been seen. It had been published over a month ago before they called me. And they didn't even know how to check if it had been seen by Google. So they were completely and utterly unaware that there was no forest with no tree to make no sound when it fell. It was so heartbreaking to have to break this to these guys. And then, even better, was the knowledge that on average, if you don't know what you're doing, there's no real given process, or there wasn't at that time, there is now, but there was no real given process to kind of nudge Google and say, oh, go on have a look, go on, give me some love, go on, you know you want to, give me some love, go on, yeah,
just a peck, just give me a little peck, just to start with a peck.
Yeah, anything. And so they had this, they were in this real situation and using techniques that you know, are taught for free in the challenge and almost glossed over. I got their site indexed, seen by Google, so that it was able to achieve some form of ranking in the search engines within 24 hours. And again, back then, this was unheard of.
Well, like the ladies say, mate, you have the magic touch. But no, it's a challenge. It's the touch that was passed on by Rob Somerville, Ed Dale, and the rest of the crew.
Absolutely, but these guys, so yes, start with the end in mind. So first of all, they give you a goal, and they give you the goal of $1. Not $500, not replace your income, but $1. Because the real goal of this, and this is important, the real goal of this is not making the money, it's going through the process, maybe more than once, so that you do it and learn it and realise that you do this. It's a process. It's as we used to say, it's handle turning.
Yeah. Well,
every step of this can be outsourced, which proves that it's a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's two things that I'd love to touch on before we finish the podcast. Is that it's also, if you sort of look at it from the context of the market at Symphony, is the challenge is also about finding out a niche that doesn't work and finding that out early enough.
Exactly.
And what I mean by that is, you might have an idea for a business, as you alluded to earlier, or an idea for a potential niche that I want to go after, a particular subject or industry. And part of this is working out and testing, is that niche a profitable niche? Are there people out there who, A, want what the heck you're trying to sell, and B, do those people even have money to buy the solution that you're trying to sell? Because there's plenty of markets out there with huge amount of people, but none of those people are willing to spend money or have the capacity to spend money. So that's the first thing they try and educate you on, is that it's as much about finding something that's not going to work as early as possible before you go and invest a lot of time, money, sweat, tears into a business that's never going to work anyway. So that's the great thing about the process as well. And the other thing I want to touch on is, I guess, a suggestion, a piece of advice, because Ed actually tweeted out yesterday or the day before a question saying, for those new people starting the challenge, what's your one piece of advice? And I kind of thought about it, and really this, let's get all deep in here. To me, I really think it's the secret to success, and it is just self-discipline and commitment. And it sounds wanky and really obvious, but there's a lot of content to get through, and if you can just discipline yourself and be consistent enough to invest 30 minutes a day, 2 hours every 2 days, 3 hours a week, just to work through this at your own pace, but you make that commitment to start, or make it the commitment to finish what you start, you'll succeed. And if you really think about in anything, I guess that, all failure is not finishing what you started, kind of. And if you look at all the successful people, half the reason they're successful is because they made the commitment to be self-disciplined and actually just do what they say they're going to do and work through and make that commitment. And I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in here that Ed talks about CFTs. I know he definitely talks about it in some of his other programs and things like that. And what a CFT is critical focus time. And it's about sitting down for a particular period of time and focusing on the one critical thing you can do today. And obviously, if you're starting the challenge, that critical thing should be watch the video, implement the actions. So you're making that commitment. I'm not going to go and check Twitter. I'm not going to go and check Facebook. I'm going to sit down for 45 minutes, 25 minutes, 2 hours, and I'm going to watch the video, take notes, implement what they tell me to do. And that's it. And then you can spend the next 23 hours of the day doing what the hell you want. Go on MySpace and Facebook and stuff like that, but just making that critical focus time to be dedicated to it. And I think we spoke about this in the triathlon episode as well, in that, the way you finish an Ironman triathlon is by turning up to training and doing nothing else but train while you're at training. Unlike entrepreneurs who turn up to their computer to do work and end up distracted on Facebook or replying to email, that's not going to work at an Ironman. You can't turn up to the swimming pool and sit there and read a book on swimming and think like you've actually made some progress. It ain't going to happen. So that's the biggest success tip I can give directly with the challenge, but anything is just to, work out what your outcome is, be dedicated, be committed, and work your way through it. And trust the process. Trust that, 160,000 people have gone through this. Rob, Ed, Dan, and the rest of the team, there's a lot of effort in planning. We sit down and go through this in depth. Not as much, I wasn't involved as much this year, but in prior years we've had, planning days to sit down and months to work through this to make sure it's exactly right and it's easy to implement for people. So trust the process, stay committed, and stay disciplined. It's really the key to any sort of success if you really think about it and believe it and do it.
Absolutely. I really I support what you said. I've got my own tip, but I support what you said because they've even, as you said, it started off with a 30-day challenge, and the original goal was to achieve something in 30 days. And when they reviewed it and moved it to call it the challenge, one of the reasons I understand they reviewed it and modified the structure was to give people a realistic chance of working through the program in a realistic amount of time. So now every, in inverted commas, day of content is a reasonable amount of content. It's like less than half an hour of video to watch. In fact, I believe the goal is to basically give you a piece of content and a task against that content that can be achieved in half an hour, or at least less than an hour. And also, there are 7 days on, 7 days off is what's recommended. So there are 7 tasks to do, and then a week to give you to either catch up with those tasks or let those tasks percolate in various online environments. So that it's absolutely realistic that if you take the idea of CFTs as critical focus time, the task that's going to make the most difference to your goal, half an hour or an hour every day, 7 days on, and then 7 days off, you're going to get somewhere if you stick with it. Absolutely. And then my tip is from this book that I've just found out about, is go for no. Most people will start this process going for the $1. Oh, I've got to make the dollar, I've got to make the dollar. And if they don't, they might get disheartened and pack up and just give up and go, oh, it's all rubbish, it's all crap, it's blah, 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 blah. The game here, as you said earlier, is go for no. Get it out of the way. Go through this process. Throw yourself at it. And so what if you make a dollar, you don't make a dollar? Because you've, as I was saying earlier, you've put in the effort, and you will have, as part of the process, you're shown how to produce a good quality website. How much does a good quality website cost? If you hired a website designer out in the real world, away from internet marketing and people that know about things like WordPress and WordPress themes and all the rest of this, how much does a real website cost? You know, you're talking a couple of $100, even if you hire some spotty oik in a shed. But so when you get to the end of the process, you've worked through the process the first time, you've thrown yourself at it, you've picked the first thing that came to mind, the first market, you've thrown the site up, you've looked for traffic, you tried to convert and it didn't work. But in your possession is that website. And one of the integral parts of the course now, as you said earlier, is that they coach you through, if you don't want to keep the website because it failed or whatever, there's this online auction place called Flipper, and Danny Batelik, who's the guy who's going to step you through listing your site on his auction site. It's like Danny calls it the eBay of websites, and you know people will buy anything on eBay. The great thing is that the reason why Danny Batelik is giving these lessons this year is because a few years ago, when Danny started as basically he's a drummer, and Ed had lots of scathing things to say about him and drumming in general. But Danny started where everybody else started at the beginning. He started with the challenge, he followed it through, he got to the end, he got this website, it wasn't converting, so he sold it on Flipper for a profit. And he sat down and he thought, do you know what? I could just do that. I could just build these sites that are already indexed by Google, which is a thing that has value. They're already seeing a certain amount of traffic, which is a thing that has value. And they're a website in their own right. They've been built, so that has value. And I can just list them on this Flipper place. And the guy now makes a living just doing that. Just by following the steps of the process in the challenge. He's not trying to make... He's literally going for the no, because he's not even trying to make the dollar half the time. I mean, he does now because he's progressed his business, he's grown his business to buying and selling high-value websites and developing high-value web assets, which is another story altogether. And we know a couple of people we could talk to about that in another podcast. But... So it's okay. Go for the no. Yeah, go for the process. Learn the process. Go for the no, because if you get a no, list it. List it on Flipper. Get your money back. At least get your money back for the domain name. And then you're on a positive because you've learned something. Apply it again. Just keep going. That's my tip.
I like it. Bang on 40 minutes, mate. I reckon we should wrap this up. We could obviously talk for ages about the challenge and the theories that it teaches, not only actual actionable items around internet marketing, but just general business philosophies and business processes and stuff like that. And I think, a lot of the stuff we've touched on, I think one of the reasons Ed and I get on so well and have built such a great friendship is because we have the same sort of underlying philosophy of what growing a business and making a business means, which is great. So I couldn't endorse it enough. And look, just get involved in the challenge community. Like this, the amount of amazing friends and I'm probably going to have like almost a challenge table at my wedding next year from just people I can consider family now that I've met through the challenge world. So that in itself is valuable in terms of just building a great community of like-minded people to share ideas and support and network and things like that, and build your mastermind groups that we spoke about in a previous episode off people in the challenge. So you've all got the same sort of foundation and context that you can grow together with. So
absolutely, fantastic extra tips there. And the last thing for me is, whenever you're listening to this podcast, I mean, hopefully you're listening to it as we go live and as we put it out in iTunes, but maybe you come to us somewhere through the year, you find out about us and you're listening to this episode. The challenge now runs, it's accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks of the year. Once the challenge launches on September the 1st, and the content is renewed, if there's anything that needs to be updated because technologies have changed this year, there's a few small things have changed, the content might be renewed, but it's available for access all year round. So whenever you're listening to this, even if you're already involved in internet marketing or you've never really got it going, doesn't matter where you're coming at it from, if you've not gone through the challenge, it's worth a look. And we've got our own little quick link to that. We've put something up at preneurmarketing.com/challenge. So go to that link and take action. Just go through the course and go for no. Just try it. There's nothing to lose.
And my other request is just a bit of self-promotion here. Let's keep that happening as well. Is that if you're on the internet, which I think a lot of you are, send us a tweet. I'm at Preneur. You are at
D-Goucher.
Yeah. And, look, we would really appreciate it. We obviously, every week, we always ask for iTunes reviews and stuff like that, and we continue to subtly ask for iTunes reviews. But what we'd also love is just share the love. If you're enjoying the podcast and you're a regular listener and you think there's a great tip or a great episode as a whole, feel free to tweet about it or blog about it or however you sort of feel might be helpful. That'd be really cool, guys, if you could do that and share the love and help us out getting the word out, because we really enjoy doing this, and we like to stroke our egos by checking the stats and seeing where people are listening from, and the growth has been phenomenal. So the listener is just continuing to grow week on week. It's amazing. So help us continue that and help stroke our egos.
Indeed, please do. Please continue giving us feedback on the iTunes Store, positive or negative. Email us, PreneurCast at
PreneurGroup.com. We're doing a bit of a tag team here, are we?
Yeah, got to work on that comment timing there, dude.
You can edit that out, can't you? You can edit the silence out afterwards. But also,
I'm leaving it.
Big props to Chris, who sent a tweet to me this week saying he's listened to the last 2 episodes of our podcast, has implemented some stuff already, and his business has started to grow a little bit. So that's great. Hopefully we can buy you breakfast next week by the stuff you've learnt, and hopefully by next year we can buy you a Merc.
Awesome. And that's really what we're doing this for. We're doing this because hopefully people out there can take some of the things that we talk about, implement them, take action on what we say, implement these ideas, whether it's the 7 levers or whether it's a book that we recommend, whatever it is, and it'll hopefully improve your business. and then we've done our job.
That's it. See you next week.
See you next week, buddy.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of PreneurCast with Pete Williams and Dom Gosher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at www.preneurmarketing.com or drop them a line via PreneurCast@preneurgroup.com.